This is Andrew with headphones.com, and today, yes, we're going to be talking about headphones like these ones that don't annoy your neighbors. So most of the time, if I'm looking for the best possible sound quality from a pair of headphones, I'm going for open back ones like these ones here. And that's because they're designed to not compromise on sound quality, sound leaks in and out. And for those of us who simply can't use these open back headphones, or headphones like it because of our environment, we have to go with some closed back headphones, something that's going to block the sound coming in to make it so that you're isolated, and also to block the sound going out to stop annoying your neighbors. And no, I'm not talking about closed back headphones like these ones, or other wireless noise canceling ones, even though there are some very exciting ones to talk about soon. Make sure you're subscribed for that. But instead, I'm going to be talking about the wired passive headphones that are still able to deliver excellent sound quality at a wide range of different price points. I'm not able to cover everything. I don't have access to everything. There's definitely some headphones that I haven't heard out there. And also, I'm just one person. So I'm going to also be enlisting the help of Chrono, as he has heard many of these headphones and also has his own take on a number of the other ones that I am less familiar with. This is the closed back headphone list of 2022. So let's dive right in. I wanted to get your take on closed back headphones in the more budget segment, because I think with this video, we want to kind of cover a wider range of different stuff, go all the way from like the budget stuff to the ultra high end. And like when we say budget, I'm saying like kind of around 200 and under. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that I would count that as as being budget or more accessible. All right. Yeah.
So I figure we could start it off. I can give my pick first. For under $200, it is still the AKG K371 right here. Very briefly, it's a dynamic driver headphone. And the key thing about this one is that it has a fantastically well-balanced frequency response, kind of a nice boost to the sub bass, and then a really even mid-range. It gets into trouble a little bit in the treble, but for the most part, it's just a really solid tuning overall. I've called this one of the best values in audio, and I still think that's true. The trade-off here, the downside, is that it is not particularly special on the technicalities front. It's not particularly spacious or well separated for the instruments. It's not really all that well controlled during busy passages, and it also looks and feels cheap. It feels like it's gonna fall apart in my hand. It's a little bit on the rickety side. But as far as the sound quality is concerned, this thing is outstanding for the price, and so I highly recommend it. But you have a different recommendation, so I'll let you go with that one.
I do, and I think people have heard about this one if they watched some of my videos, but it's one that's right here on my desk, and it's the Biodynamic DT770 Pro. This was actually one of the first audiophile grade headphones that I listened to, like hi-fi headphones. And there's a few reasons why I picked this over the AKG K371. With the first one being, you mentioned the build. I do think like the K371 feels a little bit more fragile, which is like okay for like the price point, but like these biodynamic headphones, they feel like they're built like tanks, really. And they're also super comfortable, which I really love. I do think that the K371 is tuned better. We all know that it's basically Sean Olive's baby. But the DT770, what it has is that
someone needs to create an image that's like Sean Olive holding a DT or holding a K371 like it's a baby.
Just comforting his baby K371. This one is a bit more V-shaped. It is V-shaped. In my experience, it's had a sort of like wide elevation between like 6 to 8K, which makes it bright, but not as harsh or as piercing as other biodynamic headphones. So if you like a headphone with like a very pronounced bass shelf, and it also has a bit of a mid-bass bump, so you also get some additional warmth there, then you might actually enjoy the tuning of this headphone. I think it's very energetic. For some people, it might be a bit forward in the treble. It wasn't for me, even though I do consider myself to be treble sensitive. Yeah, I think with the DT770 Pro, you're getting a lot of value for the $150 price mark. I do think you need an amp, but the technical performance here, I think, is closer to that of like $300 headphones. It's very, very good.
So the next price bracket up, or I guess if for folks who are a little bit more flexible with the amount that they're going to spend, I'm going to recommend the Drop Aeon X closed from, it's a Dan Clark audio headphone, and it's their collaboration with Massdrop, but these are essentially the Aeons, the original Aeons with different pads on them. I believe that's what's going on here. They're a planar magnetic headphone. They are comfortable, and they have possibly the best frequency response of any headphone period, or I shouldn't say best frequency response, possibly the best tuning. So for the relative balance between bass, mids, and treble, it's very even sounding, which is great. You know, the drawbacks here are that they're not really that special for their technical performance, but I do find the instrument separation to be excellent on these. They just sound a little bit on the blunted side for trailing ends of tones. They're not as clear there, but for the rest of the qualities there, it's great. It's got good control during busy passages as well. They sound a little bit like kind of like almost artificial somehow in the treble, like there's a plasticky quality, and I think it's because it's a little bit uneven there for various different elements of the frequency response. But as far as the general tuning, the overall tonal balance here, I really couldn't ask for more. And so this one is also I think a great value in audio. So I'm going to highly recommend that one for those who are looking for that style of tuning with just a little bit more of some of the intangible qualities. The Aeon 2 Noir right here, it's quite a step up in price, but it is also a step up in terms of sound quality and in terms of convenience, because you can collapse them. So they actually do become more portable. But you also heard the Aeon 2 Noir as well, and I want to get your take on that one.
Yeah, I actually love the Aeon 2 Noir, and I own a pair of them myself. It was a great departure from my experience with the original Aeon 2 Close, you know, the red colored version. And it has a much more neutral, more balanced sounding tuning. I think it's still like a little bit bright in the upper treble, like in that air region above 10K. It feels like it's a little bit up shelf, and there's like maybe a little bit of spiciness, just a tiny bit around like 8K. But it's a very, very enjoyable headphone, as a superb bass response, I think, as you'd expect from, you know, planar magnetic headphones. Very good instrument separation. The only concerns I have really with it, or the only critique, is that the soundstage is very narrow. It's very small, and the imaging is also not the most precise. Like, I tried gaming in those. You know, I love gaming. I couldn't really do it. But I feel like this one's also in a price bracket where things start to get a little bit more contended, because then you also have Focal entering into the arena. You know, I think like right around I think it's $990, or is it $900? There's the Celeste, right?
Yeah, but you and I both prefer the Radiance, actually, which I have behind me. Let me just grab that one. So it's funny, because when I first heard the Radiance, I heard a pre-production model, or at least it didn't have the pads that are on it now. So actually, it's been a while. Like it had been a long time for me to actually get a production model in. And when I listened to it, I went, wow, yeah, this is the one. I think for me, the key difference there between the Celeste and Radiance, it's two things. One is that the Radiance, for whatever reason, I find it more comfortable. Maybe it's to do with the foam density of the pads or something. I'm not sure. Or the overall clamp pressure. But I find it more comfortable. And then I also find the soundstage to be a little better on the Radiance, even though the tuning is very similar between the two. But yeah, I'm really into the Radiance. I actually, like, the tuning of this one is probably the best tuning for any Focal closeback.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I know we'll get to the Stellia, which is the ultra high end one, but for the tuning, I struggle to think of a better Focal.
Yeah, so I think what you can take away from what we're saying here is that we like the Celeste, but really prefer the Radiance. So like in this price bracket, I think, would you agree that a recommendation would be like, if you can stretch, you go for the Radiance. If you want a dynamic, like very punchy headphone, which is what you get with Focal headphones. If you want a more like, I would say like laid back, like easy to listen to, like nuanced presentation, I think you go with the Aeon 2 Noir. Would you agree with that?
I do feel that the Radiance is the one it's like you notice things in the mid-range a little bit more. Like they kind of almost stand out a little bit more, maybe because of that slight elevation or quirkiness in the upper mids. But I would definitely say that between the Noir and the Radiance is the one that has the physicality and the impact, and the Noir has the instrument separation and control density passages. That's how I would kind of break the two apart. Mm-hmm. Like I do think that's actually an area where the Noir is better than the Radiance, is that the image separation and distinctness. Like if I'm listening to harmonies, like vocal tracks with harmonies, I can hear them more distinctly, from each other on the Noir. But the impact for kick drums is more impactful and feels more like it has more. It's got more gumption.
No, I
on the
agree.
Radiance.
I agree,
Gumption's
and
my new
I think
audiophile
that's something
term.
we tend to, you and I enjoy in Focal headphones, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's that punchiness that they have.
Also, shout out to FC Construct, who just recently wrote a review article on the Radiance, which I will leave linked in the description below. So check that one out if you haven't yet. Basically, now we're in the high-end territory, and there's a whole bunch of high-end headphones. Well, we're just actually talking about. There's not that many high-end closed-back headphones, and unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to try all of them. But I figure we can talk about just what the rest of them are. You heard the Meze Lyric.
I did,
and you liked that one.
I did.
Yeah. I was less hot on it, but yeah, just what's your take on the lyric?
I know that the tuning has some issues, particularly in the treble. There's something about this Renaro driver, I think, is just always very, very, very bright in the upper treble. It's not like piercing, it's not like harsh, but it does sort of give the treble an artificial sort of sound to it. I don't know if you know what I mean. But one thing that I really like that transferred over from the Empyrean to the lyric is that this driver, it has like, for me, the way it does instrument separation it just sounds different than other headphones, and it does it so well. I feel like you can hear instrument lines so clearly distinguished from each other in a way that not many headphones can achieve. And on top of that, I think it's a beautiful looking headphone. It's super comfortable to wear. I mean, I like to EQ things, so like after EQ was a lot more enjoyable for me.
That's one thing I didn't really get that much opportunity to do with the lyric was dive into EQ with it. But I remember feeling at the time that like its technical performance to me wasn't that much better than Aeon 2 Noir, I felt, and it had similar strengths and weaknesses. It was a lot more money they're both comfortable, and the Noir is one that would be less EQ required for me.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
But that's why, and that's also a planar as well, right?
Yeah.
And it does feel like planars are more of a challenge to do closing off. But we haven't talked about the most technically ridiculous high-end close-back headphone yet, which in my view is the LCD XC from Odyssey.
Ooh.
Now you haven't heard that one
I
yet?
have not, unfortunately.
Okay, so there's a huge caveat with this one, and it's the same caveat that I think you typically get with Odysseys, which is that without EQ, it can sound a bit
sus,
odd. yeah. But with EQ, it's like the separation and control on this one, it outclasses everything else on the table, including like the $3,000 Stellia. Like for that specific quality, for instrument separation, control between busy passages, we've called it sort of the incisiveness, being able to peer into the music. Like the LCD XC really does that well. And so with EQ, this is one of the better performing headphones I think you can find. Without EQ, I probably would look at most of the other ones on this table, or at least in this list. But with EQ, it really shines. I'd say without EQ, it can sound a little bit like bright, a little bit lean, because it needs a little bit of that. Like the overall balance actually isn't that. It actually looks reasonable on the graph, but I think it's like the distance between the upper mids and treble and the bass is just a little too much, and so you got to kind of lift up the bass a little bit. And then there's a couple of quirks in the treble and lower treble that kind of make it sound a little bit just slightly wrong. I'll put it that way. So this is one, if you are in the EQ gang, this is near the top. It's actually at the top of my ranking list. And I know that the drawbacks here are it is not the greatest for that sense of dynamism or impact. And it has a somewhat odd timbral quality. But again, I think that's an FR thing that can be fixed. And if you compare that to, the Radiance, it's like, they're actually around the same price. And the Radiance, it's like the complete opposite, right? Where it's like you don't EQ the Radiance because you don't need to. And it's also the more punchy one, but it's not as crazy at instrument separation and control. So yeah, one of those where I'm actually looking for, I hope you get a chance to hear this at some point, because
I'm
curious what you think.
I think the plan was that I'd listen to it, but then you liked it so much you didn't let it go. So I never got around to listen to that.
That's
one.
right.
So
That's right.
It got caught up in the Resolve.
Too bad.
Yeah, it got caught in the Resolve vortex.
But unfortunately, it's one that I am not able to listen to for long periods of time because it is also very heavy.
Yes.
So for me, I index very strongly for comfort. And so that's why for me, like, again, I gravitate more towards the Noir or the Radiance, for those longer sessions. The last one on my list here is the Focal Stellia, which is their flagship closeback. And this one does use the beryllium drivers, just like the Utopia does. Interestingly, the Stellia doesn't have quite the same kind of natural tonality that the Radiance does. The Stellia it's a bit more colored and flavored there throughout the mid range, and also I think there's a pretty strong mid bass bump on the Stellia. This is one where I find it to be very much about like the clarity for trailing ends of tones, that sort of technical quality there. We call it detail for people who hear that stuff, and of course the punchiness is there. But again, it's one where I think they outdid themselves with the Radiance as far as the tonality is concerned. So.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'd grab the Radiance as well. The tonality is so much more natural. I like the Stellia. I think one thing I think we should mention is that we're getting to a point where performance is so marginal. Yes, the Stellia is better, but I think at this point, I think I'd start to take tonality over raw performance.
Just to do this comparison, I was kind of revisiting the Stellia and like all of these, and man, it is like, well, it's one of the best dynamic driver closeback headphones for technical performance, if not the top. I think the other one there would be the one that you've actually personally owned, the Verite.
Yes,
DMF.
that's correct.
Do you want to talk about that one a little bit?
The Verite Close. So this one's interesting. So this one has a beryllium coated driver, so it's not an entirely beryllium driver. I think it's like 20% beryllium or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's polyethylene naphthalate with beryllium coating, I think.
So this one is DMF, and as you know, this means that it's a handmade headphone. It takes a few weeks to get, but man, it is. I mean, the ownership experience itself is very special. This is a headphone with like a slightly pronounced mid bass, which gives it like a nice warmth in the low end, but it's not exaggerated. It just gives it a little bit more kick, and you have a very rich mid range. The only thing that I would say that I would like caution you with the Verite Close was that with some pads, like there was like this 5.5 or 5K like hertz like peak. I think Resolve, you experienced something similar with the Verite Open, right?
Yeah. I think actually that's a quality that because Zach tunes a lot of the stuff by ear, right? I think for him that's like he likes that balance with that. Like he thinks that the peak is there to sort of balance out some of the warmth, I guess.
Oh,
if that makes sense. Yeah, they tend to be warmer headphones.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an intentional part of the tuning there. And yeah, I've heard it as well. I know exactly what you're talking about. I will say when I heard the Verite Closed, I one of my favorite systems actually listening at CanJam was with the most recent CanJam was with the Verite Closed off of I forget, it was a tube amp. I think it was called the Dragon Inspire or something like that. It was all about that sort of like tube euphony kind of stuff. Really, really nice. So I think that's actually something else we should probably talk about is the various different source equipment and pairings that people are doing with these.
Yeah.
Ordinarily I'm just running like solid state stuff, but there are certain headphones, the higher impedance ones, that I really enjoy with tubes. The ones that don't really do so well with tubes, in my mind, would be it's like the lower impedance vocals, because they're gonna change with output impedance quite a bit, and they're already quite bassy. Whereas I think some of the other ones would probably be better. Like the Verite is the one that I'd probably go for tubes with. It makes a bit more sense. And then I also would be curious about did you try the DT770 off of tubes?
I did, and it was better. I wish I had tried the Verite Close on tubes, because I'm wondering now if it would have enhanced that, because it did that for the DT770 Pro. And one of the things I forgot to mention about the DT770 Pro is that it has a very nice soundstage, but also when you run it out of tubes, it also has that holographic thing in the imaging. Yeah,
it's like a kind of a 3D-ness character experience. Those are what I would consider, if I'm looking at closeback headphones today, those are the ones that I'm looking at. I know there are other closeback headphones that are, deserving of attention, but these are the ones for me. But I want to ask you, are there any other ones that we've sort of missed that are worth an honorable mention? Maybe if you've had a little bit of experience with it, even if we haven't done a full review.
I'm just thinking of the stuff I've tried. I can't think. No, I think there's not enough amazing closeback headphones. We need more closeback headphones. Is basically we need more headphones. That's the moral of the story today. But no, I think those that
clearly the 7 that we've covered is not enough.
No, not enough. Yes, we need more closeback headphones. But I think that covers I think some of the most standout, most enjoyable, most value for your money. Questionable for the really high-end stuff, but value for your money headphones that I've tried, I think.
Last question for you. Do you think, You know how like these days there's a lot of newer wireless or noise canceling headphones, and a lot of companies who are now in the high-end audiophile space are going there. Like Focal recently came out with the Batiste, which is their wireless noise canceling headphone, which we will be doing a comparison video of with other noise canceling headphones. So stay subscribed for that one. But I want to get your take on like the distance in terms of sound quality, or the trade-offs, I guess, like for both sound quality and like isolation versus active noise canceling, because like I don't think we expect the sound quality of these noise canceling headphones to really be on the same level as some of these ones, but it's for the benefit of active noise canceling. And if I'm just thinking for myself, if I'm just sitting at my computer and I'm working away on stuff and I don't have a lot of like, outside sounds coming in, I'm not, in traffic or anything. Do you think that it's the isolation that you get from passive headphones is good enough?
I'm going to say it varies, which I know it's like a really crappy answer.
It's a cop out.
Yeah, it's it really I mean it really varies. Like with the biodynamic stuff, with all the DT closeback stuff, those are gun range earmuffs. I can't hear anything, honestly. So, or like actually with the Noir, it was easier to like slightly let sound like leak in. The point is, it varies. Like some of the biodynamics are excellent. I think the focals seal pretty good, and I have a hard time hearing stuff outside of my music when I'm wearing the focal stuff. But I have to test different headphones. So if sound isolation is a priority, I mean, I think the noise canceling is very helpful. Or if you don't mind the trouble, definitely go with biodynamic. But it varies.
So I think that basically does it for this list. As I mentioned earlier on, this list is not exhaustive because there's definitely stuff that we have yet to try. And if there's headphones that you think should be on this list that we just aren't considering, or honorable mentions or something like that, definitely let us know in the comments, and we'll try and include those in a future list. We'll update this at some point. So this is just as of right now, the ones that we are into the most for close back headphones. So with that, thanks to Chrono for joining us. And we will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.